Disney-owned ABC is pulling Jimmy Kimmel's late night show off the air indefinitely amid controversy over the host's recent comments about the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. During his monologue on Monday night, Kimmel spoke about the Republican response to Kirk's killing, saying, quote, "The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." FCC Chairman Brendan Carr described those remarks yesterday, in his words, as the sickest conduct possible, adding that the FCC could move to revoke ABC affiliate licenses as a punishment. Just a few hours later, the biggest owner of ABC-affiliated stations, that's Nexstar, announced it would preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, citing Kimmel's comments about the killing of Kirk. A short time later, a spokesman for ABC said in a statement that the late-night program will be preempted indefinitely, but didn't further elaborate on the decision. President Trump praised the move on social media, posting in part, quote, "Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done." So we got to really note this, that last month, Nexstar announced plans to acquire one of its rivals, that's Tegna, for $6.2 billion. That deal, which is expected to close in the second half of next year, would require the FCC to relax the national ownership cap that limits how many stations one company can own in the U.S. FCC Chairman Carr has suggested in the past he's willing to raise or eliminate that longstanding cap. Now, if that deal goes through, it would further consolidate station ownership across the United States, but you're starting to see the connections and the cross-currents all at play here. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is planning to take action against left-wing groups that the president and his allies claim have contributed to political unrest and violence. Those moves are expected to include investigations into the tax-exempt status of certain liberal groups like the Open Society Foundations and the Ford Foundation. A source tells NBC News that these actions, which come in the wake of Kirk's assassination, could begin as early as the end of the month. Federal law, however, prohibits the president and vice president from ordering such tax inquiries. And there's been no evidence linking these groups to Kirk's killing either. Officials say they believe the suspect acted alone. That's the official law enforcement belief. The Wall Street Journal reports that officials across the administration are working to identify groups suspected of targeting conservatives or causes conservative support. That could include looking at attacks on Tesla showrooms, like we saw earlier this year, as well as people who have retaliated against law enforcement carrying out Trump's deportation campaign. Meanwhile, the president announced last night that he will label Antifa as a major terrorist organization, although current law only allows this designation for foreign groups. And the president is continuing his visit to the United Kingdom today. He's going to hold meetings throughout the morning with the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, before the pair is set to hold a joint press conference. Yesterday, the royal family hosted President Trump and the First Lady at Windsor Castle, located just about 25 miles outside of London proper. In the morning, Trump observed a military ceremony on the castle grounds alongside King Charles. You see them there. The ceremony included a 41-round gun salute, the playing of the two nations' national anthems, a flyover, and a horse and carriage procession. A lot of pomp and circumstance. In the evening, the Trumps continued the celebrations, joining the royal family for a state dinner at the castle. Both King Charles and President Trump spoke at the start of that event. And here's how the president opened his remarks.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. And if you think about it, it's a lot of presidents, and this was the second state visit, and that's the first, and maybe that's going to be the last time. I hope it is, actually. But this is truly one of the highest honors of my life.
Joining us from London, White House correspondent for Bloomberg, Justin Sink. Justin, thanks for joining us. Let's start with yesterday before we talk about this morning's events and what's yet to come. What did you make of the scenes at Windsor Castle? What were some of the biggest takeaways? And we knew that the pomp and circumstance would really resonate with Trump. I mean, you heard him talking about it there. Clearly, he loved it.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It was pomp and circumstance to the max, and lots of attempts to flatter the president. The orchestra at the state dinner was playing the Rolling Stones and Elton John songs from Trump's playlist. They had a cocktail based on s'mores and a port from 1945 because Trump's the 45th president. So we did see a lot of attempts to flatter the president, but there was a couple moments that did kind of signal the sort of business and friction within the U.S.-UK relationship. In those speeches, Charles raised the need to keep Ukraine from tyranny and also the issue of conservation, environmental protections. And that's notable because those are issues where Trump has broken from Western allies. And the king is normally pretty apolitical. This is obviously intended to kind of bring Trump on side and flatter him. But even in those moments, there were sort of signs of some of that friction.
Yeah, because you don't go on a charm offensive if there's not a reason to do so. And that's really been a central focus, sort of setting the stage for these meetings that Trump is set to participate in now throughout the morning ahead. They're more overtly political because he'll be with the prime minister. Keir Starmer has really cut a very specific and influential profile in this second Trump era. We're looking ahead to that at around 9:20 a.m. Eastern. What are you going to be watching for? What are the issues that you might expect them to announce some progress on? What would progress even look like on a number of these issues, which are quite complex and thorny?
Well, I think what the president and prime minister want to focus on are some of the economic deals that they've brokered ahead of this. And they really are looking at working together on AI data centers, cryptocurrency, and the sort of nuclear power needed to fuel them. And those are areas where they will make progress. And we'll hear sort of some big dollar agreements that come to the table. And folks like Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, and Tim Cook of Apple were at that state dinner last night. But the real question is how they deal with some of the stickier stuff. Ukraine is a huge one. And the world's sort of watching to see how President Trump will respond now that Vladimir Putin hasn't sort of taken up his offer for a summit with President Zelensky of Ukraine. Will there be sanctions, or will he kind of continue to push Europe on questions like cutting off oil purchases from Russia, or huge sanctions or tariffs on China that they're not really interested in? Steel and aluminum, there was a key part of the trade deal, and they haven't yet kind of ironed out the final details. So if we get any more indication there, London's already abandoned its sort of efforts to get those down to zero, but they're hoping to make progress on that. So those will be some of the stickier issues that we're on the lookout for.
Yeah, you're talking about the trade aspect, AI, and then, of course, more diplomatic efforts around Ukraine, as you mentioned. Of course, the ongoing conflict in Gaza, that's also likely to be discussed and on the table this morning. That's not to say that the president hasn't also had news to follow from back home, because we've seen several of his top administration officials, in Kash Patel's instance, literally in the hot seat. And then, of course, the former CDC director who was fired by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also testifying on Capitol Hill. He got the rate cut that he wanted from the Fed. Of course, the Jimmy Kimmel news, which we saw him weigh in on social media. Are any of these breaking through? I mean, have we heard about this from, if not the president, other members of the senior staff who are with you on that trip?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this news broke sort of in the middle of the night, though the president was continuing to tweet through it, which suggests he's probably struggling with jet lag as much as the rest of us. But I think we will. I think those are all hot button things that we're going to hear at this press conference. On Gaza specifically, there's a real question with Prime Minister Starmer. The Brits have said that they want to recognize a Palestinian state before the UN meetings next week in New York. And at the same time, I think they don't want to kind of draw President Trump into a big conflict over this issue. So will that come up at the press conference? And will it be a situation where you see a break between the president and the prime minister? That's something that we'll definitely be on the lookout for.
Yeah, of course. Bloomberg's Justin Sink, thank you for setting us up on all of these threads. And we're going to be watching President Trump and Keir Starmer's press conference live as it happens on Morning Joe later this morning.